This story is titled, At Our Friend's Birthday Party, My Wife Announced She's Divorcing Me After a Decade of Suffering. But when her friend reminded her about our prenup that would leave her financially ruined, she started making excuses about being drunk. But it was too late. Hey, Reddit, I just finalized my divorce, and I need to get this story off my chest. My ex-wife Nicole tried to take me for everything I'm worth, but thanks to some careful planning and a lesson my father taught me years ago, things didn't go quite the way she expected. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I need to start from the beginning, or none of this will make sense. I'm a 42-year-old guy who has been running my own electrical contracting firm for the past 17 years. It's not some huge corporation, but it's a solid business that pays the bills and then some. We specialize in mid-size commercial projects, office buildings, retail spaces, that kind of thing. I started the company with just myself and 3 guys I trusted, and now we've got 32 employees with offices in 2 cities. I'm not trying to brag here, just setting the stage for what comes later. I met Nicole about 14 years ago at a friend's housewarming party. She was 28 at the time, having just been dumped by some guy who left her with a mountain of credit card debt and student loans. She had a psychology degree that she never used and was working as a part-time yoga instructor, barely making rent in a crappy apartment with 3 roommates. On the side, she was trying to make it work with one of those MLM wellness product schemes, but it wasn't going anywhere. We hit it off right away. She was gorgeous, tall, athletic, with this infectious laugh that could light up a room. But it wasn't just the looks that drew me in. She had this energy about her, ambitious but lost, like she knew she was meant for bigger things, but couldn't figure out the path forward. I could tell she just needed someone to believe in her, and being the supportive boyfriend I was, I decided to be that person. Our first date was nothing fancy, just coffee that turned into lunch that turned into dinner because we couldn't stop talking. By the 3rd date, I was helping her make a budget to tackle her debt. By the 6th date, I was falling hard. There was something about her determination that really got to me. She wasn't looking for handouts or trying to find someone to take care of her. She genuinely wanted to build something of her own. After we had been dating for a few months, I helped her consolidate her debt. I wasn't trying to be her savior or anything like that, but watching her stress over minimum payments while interest piled up seemed stupid when I could actually help. I paid off her highest interest credit cards, and she started making payments to me instead. No interest, which made way more sense financially for both of us. We moved in together after 10 months of dating and got engaged at the 20-month mark. When we got married 3 years after first meeting, I even fronted the cash for her to start her own wellness brand. It was some subscription box thing with protein powders and herbal supplements. She had this vision of building a health empire, targeting women who wanted natural fitness solutions. I wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but she was passionate about it, and I wanted to support her dreams. Before we tied the knot, I insisted on a prenup. This wasn't because I didn't trust her. I was absolutely crazy about Nicole, but because I had watched my father lose everything in his divorce 22 years earlier. The man had built an electrical business for 32 years, pouring his heart and soul into it, only to end up living in a studio apartment while his ex-wife kept the house, the vacation property, and half of his future earnings. My dad died still bitter about the whole situation, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Love doesn't protect you from someone's sense of entitlement when things go south. So I was completely straight up with Nicole about it. Look, I'm building something that I plan to someday pass down to our kids, I told her. I need to protect that core asset. Everything we build together will be ours together. But what I bring into this marriage has to stay protected. Nicole wasn't thrilled about the prenup at first. She pouted for a few days, but she seemed to understand eventually. I get why you need this protection, she said, after meeting with the lawyer I paid for. I'd never try to take what you built before me. She signed it and we moved on. The terms were pretty standard and, looking back, quite fair given our respective starting positions. I kept what I brought into the marriage, and she kept what she brought in, which was basically just the debt I'd helped her clear. We would split anything acquired during the marriage 75/25 in my favor if she initiated divorce without cause like abuse or infidelity. If I initiated without cause, she'd get 45%. If we both agreed to divorce, it would be 65/35 in my favor. At the time, it seemed more than fair. She was getting a fresh financial start, and I was protecting what I'd spent years building. The first few years of our marriage were really good. We moved into a nice house in a gated community. Nothing flashy, just comfortable. We traveled a bit, and her business grew steadily. It wasn't huge, but it was respectable. At its peak, she had about 6,000 subscribers, bringing in maybe $35,000 to $45,000 in profit annually. I was genuinely proud of her hustle. She'd post workout videos and nutrition tips, building a little community around her brand. I never micromanaged her business or questioned her spending. We had separate accounts for personal stuff and joint accounts for household expenses. Her business had its own accounts that I helped set up, but never touched. I just wanted us both to thrive in our respective lanes and support each other's success. But around year 6 of our marriage, things started shifting. At first, it was small stuff that I probably should have paid more attention to. She'd drop $900 on a purse without mentioning it, and when I brought it up, she'd say, "Don't you want me to look good? It's an investment in my brand image." Then it escalated to guilt trips. If you really loved me, you wouldn't question what I spend. Eventually, it became a pattern. Buy something ridiculous, make me feel bad for asking about it, then give me the silent treatment for days. I absolutely hate that manipulative silent treatment crap. Give me a straight-up argument any day of the week. But Nicole had mastered the art of weaponized silence. She'd just disappear emotionally until I apologized for whatever crime I'd apparently committed, usually by buying her something even more expensive to make up for it. It was classic reinforcement of bad behavior, but you don't always see these patterns when you're living in the middle of them. Year 7 brought the sudden need for a home office renovation. It cost me $22,000 to convert our guest room into her creator space. Custom built-ins, perfect lighting for videos, the works. I didn't mind at the time because business was good, and she seemed genuinely excited about scaling her brand. Year 8, she decided our house wasn't good enough anymore. We needed something in the right neighborhood to reflect our status, she said. I pushed back a bit, but eventually caved. We bought a bigger place in an even nicer gated community. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, way more space than we needed for just the 2 of us. But whatever made her happy, right? I was working 65-hour weeks anyway and was barely home to enjoy it. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming. But you know how it is when you're in the thick of it. You excuse the red flags as rough patches and keep pushing forward, thinking your partner is just going through some kind of phase. I just figured she was maybe feeling insecure about her business not growing as fast as mine. So I tried to be supportive and keep the peace. Around our 9th year together, Nicole started referring to our house as her design project when talking to friends. The first time I heard it, I laughed it off. By the 12th time, it was starting to bug me. We had picked everything together, and I had paid for about 95% of it, but suddenly she was acting like she had created this amazing space all on her own. She started hosting these wellness brunches at our place where she'd invite a bunch of women over. I'd come home to find these groups of women sitting around our living room, drinking green smoothies and talking about manifesting abundance or whatever. Normally, I wouldn't have cared. It was her house too, and she could have friends over. But I started noticing how she talked about me when she didn't think I was listening. "Tyler's at work as usual," she'd say with this dismissive tone. Or, "Men just don't understand the vision we have as female entrepreneurs." Little digs that added up over time. Whenever I had a business win, landing a major client or hitting a revenue milestone, she'd brush it off. "That's good, babe. You're supposed to make money." But when she gained 150 followers on Instagram, I was expected to bring her a gift and celebrate her brand growth. The shift from partner to queen with an attitude wasn't overnight. It was slow and subtle. She just gradually decided she deserved everything without acknowledging where it came from. Her attitude became, "Of course you should buy me nice things. Look who you get to be married to." As if her existence was some kind of gift to me that required constant payment. About 8 months ago, I started noticing weirder stuff. Nicole suddenly password locked her phone, something she'd never done before. She'd angle her screen away when I walked into a room and started going to the bathroom to take calls. She spent hours on her laptop with AirPods in, having conversations I couldn't hear. She'd disappear for entire Saturdays for networking events, but was always vague about who else was there or what they discussed. She started listening obsessively to these self-empowerment podcasts with titles like Taking What You Deserve and The Value of a Wife. She'd leave the episodes playing on our smart speakers sometimes. I noticed that between her usual fitness and wellness accounts, she was now following these random lawyers and women's financial coaching pages I'd never seen before. One coach's bio said something weird like helping women secure the bag their husbands didn't know they packed. Another had this tagline about reclaiming your worth in a relationship and asset protection strategies for modern women. I scrolled through her recent activity, trying to understand why Nicole would follow these accounts. That's when I noticed her search history had stuff like marriage contract loopholes and documenting emotional patterns in relationships. There was even a search for how to prove controlling behavior. That last one hit me hard. Controlling? Me? I had always bent over backwards to support her dreams, never questioned her spending, and never even raised my voice during arguments. Why would she be looking into this stuff? Was she helping a friend through something? Planning to become some kind of relationship coach herself? Or was there something more personal behind these searches? I put her phone back exactly where I found it, feeling this weird mix of confusion and unease. Maybe I was overthinking things, but these weren't the kind of accounts a happily married woman typically follows. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting beneath my feet, like the first tremor before an earthquake. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, Nicole casually asked over dinner, "Hey, could I review our prenup again? Just curious about something." Alarm bells went off immediately. Nobody gets just curious about a prenup after 12 years unless they're planning something. Why? I asked, trying to sound normal. Oh, just something Kelly mentioned about the standard terms these days. Probably nothing, but I'd like to refresh my memory. She smiled like it was no big deal. I told her I'd dig it out of the safe deposit box next time I was at the bank. Of course, I never did, but that's when I started paying attention. Real attention. Her inner circle wasn't helping matters at all. Her best friend Kelly was always dropping comments like, "Nicole, you're the brand. He's just the background." Or her mom Diana would chime in with gems like, "A smart woman always secures her future. Men come and go, but houses have value." Diana had been divorced 4 times, with each divorce leaving her better off financially than the last. She had been pushing Nicole since day one to keep her options open. I used to think it was just Diana being Diana, bitter and high on her own survival story. But then one Wednesday morning, I was passing by Nicole's home office while she was on a call with her mom on speaker. The door was halfway closed, and I wasn't trying to spy, but when someone's voice echoes through your hallway, you can't exactly unhear it. "You should talk to Marcus," Diana said. "He's brilliant when it comes to financial resets. He helped one of my friend's daughters sort her situation out clean. You don't have to stay stuck just because you feel obligated." Nicole didn't say much, just this little hum of agreement, like the name wasn't new to her. I froze outside the door. Marcus. That wasn't a name I'd heard around our circle before. And the way Diana said it, like he was part therapist, part financial assassin, set off something in my gut. Why the hell did they need all this talk about financial resets? They were planning something, and I just needed confirmation. That night, I asked Nicole casually, "Who's Marcus?" She barely blinked. "Oh, just someone Kelly mentioned from a finance group. Cool insights." Then she changed the subject like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing to me. I checked her Instagram, and there he was. Marcus, late 30s, polished, smug-looking. His bio was full of red flags. Helping women reclaim power from financial imbalance. It was a playbook, one specifically designed to bleed men dry. I wasn't ready to confront Nicole yet. I needed to be absolutely sure about what was happening. I asked one of our mutual friends, Ashley, at a group dinner if she knew who Marcus was. She froze up. "No idea who that is," she said way too fast. Then Melissa, another friend, slipped up over coffee. "I think maybe that's the guy from her investment group." Then she changed the subject like it burned her tongue to even mention it. That was enough confirmation for me. I had my answer. So one Friday, I told Nicole I had a site inspection across town that would run late. Instead, I wrapped up early and came home around 2:30 p.m. The garage door was closed, but Nicole's car was inside. As I walked in through the side door, I heard murmuring from upstairs. I quietly went up, not trying to catch her cheating, honestly. That would have been simpler. Instead, I found her in our home office with her laptop open on a Zoom call. I stood in the hallway, out of frame, and listened. A man was talking. That had to be Marcus. "You've wasted 12 years catering to a man's ego," he was saying. "Your contributions to that marriage are worth way more than some outdated prenup. You can own that house. You just need to play it smart. My consulting fee is steep, but once we're done, you'll never worry about money again." Nicole was nodding and taking notes. "The prenup doesn't account for emotional labor and lost opportunities," she said. "I could have been huge by now if I hadn't been playing supportive wife. I've put in just as much as he has." "Exactly," he replied. "That's why we need to document everything. Every time he made you feel small. Every time he questioned your spending or your business decisions. We're building a pattern of control here. You need to start recording conversations, saving texts, anything that shows he limited your growth. I remember standing there thinking, what the hell is going on? I almost burst in right then. Supportive wife? Yeah, that's right. She had been playing supportive wife while I supported her financially and emotionally for over a decade. But something stopped me from confronting her immediately. If I let her know I was onto her, she'd know her plan was blown. It was better to let her think everything was working while I prepared my own defense. I backed away silently, went downstairs, then made noise coming in the front door. Honey, I'm home early! By the time I got upstairs, the call was ended and she was just checking emails. How was your inspection? She asked, all innocent. Fine, I said. Foundation looks solid. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was sad, but because I was absolutely pissed, and because I needed a plan. The woman I'd built a life with for over a decade was actively plotting to destroy me, to take everything I'd worked for by painting me as some kind of monster. And the worst part? If I hadn't caught on when I did, it might have actually worked. I didn't confront Nicole about Marcus. I wouldn't give her the chance to spin some story or accuse me of spying on her. Instead, I started preparing methodically, like I would for any business contingency that could threaten my company. First thing the next morning, I called my lawyer. I gave him a complete situation update, and we discussed worst-case scenarios, building defenses for each one. He told me that if she was talking to some coach about challenging the prenup, chances were she'd try to claim coercion, fraud, or emotional abuse, stuff that's notoriously hard to disprove after the fact. He advised me to document everything from that point forward. Keep a voice recorder on me during any difficult conversations, save every text and email, and build a comprehensive record that showed the reality of our relationship. This meant documenting her unlimited spending, our separate accounts, and all the financial support I'd given her over the years. Next, I pulled all of our financial records for the past 6 years. Bank statements, investment accounts, credit card bills, property assessments, everything. I created a detailed timeline of major purchases and transfers, documenting every time I'd fronted money for her business, every vacation I'd paid for, and every designer item in her closet. The numbers were staggering when I laid them all out. I quietly installed security cameras around the house. Doorbell, garage, main living areas, all with cloud backup. This wasn't to spy on her daily activities, but to protect myself legally. When someone's planning to screw you over financially, they often don't stop at just financial games. I'd heard horror stories of guys being set up with false domestic violence claims, and I wasn't going to let that happen to me. I separated my business accounts even further from our personal ones. Technically, they were already separate entities, but I removed any automatic transfers that existed and updated all passwords and access permissions. I changed the passwords on every account I could think of. Email, cloud storage, investment portals, everything. I also started documenting every single interaction we had. Every conversation, every weird request, every time she met with Kelly or mentioned Marcus. Not in a creepy, obsessive way, just simple notes with dates and basic facts. If this situation was headed where I thought it was, I'd need a clear chronological record of events. At that point, I started wondering if I was going too far, because what I was doing felt like I was suddenly a detective investigating my own wife, rather than a husband trying to save his marriage. I kept thinking, what if this is all just noise? What if the wellness calls and cryptic comments were just her being dramatic, not dangerous? I hated the idea of seeing my own wife as a threat to everything I'd built. But that gut feeling wouldn't go away. If I ignored it, and she really was setting me up for financial destruction, I'd only have myself to blame when everything came crashing down. I set up a separate email account that she didn't know about and started forwarding important documents there. I backed up photos and videos of us together. Happy moments that showed a normal, loving couple, not some abusive situation she might try to invent later. The whole time, I acted completely normal around her. I still brought her coffee in the morning, still asked about her day, still showed up for the dinners and social events that mattered to her. I wasn't trying to punish her or create drama. I was just protecting myself while trying to figure out how deep this conspiracy went. About 3 weeks into my preparation phase, I saw an opening I couldn't ignore. We were refinancing the lake house that summer. Routine stuff, just locking in a better interest rate. Normally, Nicole didn't care much about the paperwork side of financial things. As long as the payment stayed manageable and she could decorate however she wanted, she was happy to let me handle the logistics. But lately, She'd been laser-focused on anything financial, asking to review the prenup and dropping legal terms she'd never used before. So when I sat down with my lawyer to handle the refinancing, I asked if we could revisit our prenuptial agreement and add some additional protections in case false claims ever entered the picture. Nothing drastic, just something that would trigger a more one-sided asset split. Maybe 90/10 in my favor, if things went nuclear under certain accusations like coercion or emotional abuse. If she filed honestly or we agreed to divorce mutually, the original terms would still stand. We weren't removing her protections. We were just adding clarity for mine in case she tried to play dirty. When the paperwork came in, I framed it exactly how it was. "Hey, you asked about the prenup stuff a few weeks ago," I told her casually. "They said since we're refinancing the lake house, they needed everything updated and re-executed to be clean on record. So they included a fresh copy. You'll need to sign again. It's standard when properties are involved. You can look through it if you want. Most of it's the same." And to her credit, she actually did read through a good chunk of it. Not cover to cover, but she flipped through the prenup pages, highlighted a section about asset retention, and made a few comments about how outdated some of the wording sounded. As she skimmed through the document, I casually mentioned the Aspen spa package I'd booked for her, the one she'd been daydreaming about for months. 6 days, all inclusive, the works. Her face immediately softened, and she smiled, saying something about how perfectly timed it was. She kept working through the paperwork at her own pace while I stayed quiet, focused on my own stack of documents beside her. There was no pressure from me. I just let her take her time. Eventually, she initialed every page and signed at the end, adding her usual smiley face next to her name, just like she always did. "You deserve it," I told her. And I meant that in more ways than one. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was protecting myself from what she was already halfway through planning. After she got back from the spa retreat, the tension in our house became absolutely unbearable. We weren't arguing outright, but we weren't normal either. Every word felt carefully measured, every glance too controlled. She smiled like everything was fine, but something fundamental had shifted between us, and I knew she felt it too. We were both quietly sizing each other up, like two poker players trying to read each other's hands. What hit me hardest during this period was the sheer confusion of it all. I had given everything to that relationship, my time, my money, my unwavering support. Whatever she needed, I was there for her. And for a long time, she had seemed genuinely happy. Not fake happiness, not forced smiles, real, authentic happiness. So why now? Why twist something that had been solid into some kind of strategic game? It made no sense to me unless her happiness had just been part of an elaborate act all along. 3 weeks later, Melissa was hosting a birthday dinner at her place. "Just close friends," Nicole said, which meant Kelly, Diana, a couple from her fitness studio, and that guy Kevin who did her brand photography. Not exactly my crowd, but whatever. I played nice, made small talk, and complimented the food. During dessert, Nicole held up her wine glass and stood up. "I want to toast to Melissa on her birthday," she began, getting all misty-eyed. "And to all of you amazing people who've been part of my journey. You've watched me grow from a struggling yoga teacher to building my brand, and now I'm entering a new phase of rediscovering myself. Maybe solo." The entire table went dead silent. Everyone looked from her to me except for Kelly, who was nodding supportively like this wasn't a complete bombshell being dropped in the middle of chocolate cake. I took a slow sip of water, set down my glass, and looked directly at Nicole. "Let me know when your lawyer's ready," I said calmly. "Mine already is." Her face was absolutely priceless. She tried to laugh it off, putting her hand on my shoulder. "Oh, Tyler, always the logical one. I'm just talking about personal growth." "Logically speaking," I replied just as calmly, "this sounds like a negotiation. My counsel is standing by." Then I turned to Kevin and asked about his new camera equipment, just moving the conversation along like nothing had happened. Nicole stood there frozen for a full minute before sitting back down. Kelly mumbled something about having an early morning and left before coffee was even served. The party broke up pretty quickly after that. That night, Nicole tried some damage control, claiming I had completely misunderstood her toast. I just nodded and said, "Time will tell." She glared at me with pure venom. "I'm taking everything, Tyler. The house, the business. You'll be left with nothing. You will be nothing without me anyway." I cracked a half smile. "Then this should be easy for you." 4 days later, the official divorce papers arrived. Game on. I knew the divorce papers were coming, but seeing them still hits different when they're actually in your hands. Nicole filed on a Thursday, And by Friday, her lawyer was calling mine with a settlement offer that basically ignored our entire prenup. She wanted 55% of everything, including my premarital assets and business equity, plus the house, plus alimony based on my potential future earnings. It was absolutely delusional. When my lawyer told me about the offer, I actually laughed out loud. Is she serious? They always start high, he said. But there's more. They're filing for an emergency financial order to freeze joint accounts pending resolution. That wasn't funny anymore. That was a real problem. Within 48 hours, our joint accounts were indeed frozen by court order. Her filing claimed I was hiding assets and making threatening statements about financial abandonment. Complete bullshit, but effective. The court plays it safe with these kinds of claims initially, so they freeze everything first and ask questions later. But that was just the beginning. Her complaint included vague allegations of patterns of control and emotional manipulation. She claimed I had isolated her from friends, despite the countless social events she hosted at our house. She said I belittled her business aspirations, despite fronting the capital and ongoing expenses for her ventures. She alleged I used financial leverage to keep her dependent, despite the separate accounts and her unlimited spending freedom. Reading through her filing made me physically sick, not just because it was false, but because someone I had loved for over a decade could so casually paint me as a monster just to get more money. It was calculated character assassination, plainly designed to pressure me into settling just to avoid the public smear campaign. Then, the real ambush began. Her lawyer somehow convinced a judge that I might be cooking the books at my company. Next thing I knew, I had some court-appointed bean counter crawling through every invoice and receipt from the last 4 years. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. They were coming after my business, the business I had built before I even met Nicole. The auditor questioned absolutely everything. Why did this project go over budget? Why was this employee paid a bonus? Why did we use this vendor instead of a cheaper alternative? Every single business decision I'd made over the past several years was suddenly suspect. My CFO spent entire days pulling documentation instead of doing his actual job, just to satisfy this fishing expedition. Then someone, and I think we can all guess who, made an anonymous complaint to my company's HR department, claiming I had created a toxic work environment and was emotionally unstable due to divorce proceedings. HR had to investigate, which meant awkward conversations with my team and executives. Look, Tyler, we know this is bullshit, my VP of operations told me, but we have to go through the motions. It's starting to impact morale, though. People are worried. I had to call an all-hands meeting to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm going through a divorce. No, it won't affect the company's stability or your jobs. Yes, there are some legal proceedings involving our finances. No, there's nothing improper to find. Let's all stay focused on our projects. It was easier said than done. The distraction was constant and affecting everyone. The cherry on top came when one of my biggest clients, a commercial developer I'd worked with for 9 years, called to express concerns about whether my personal situation would affect our ongoing projects. I had to drive to their office for an emergency meeting just to keep them from pulling 4 contracts worth over $1.2 million in revenue. The client eventually agreed to keep us on, but with additional oversight requirements that we'd never needed before. The trust was damaged, and I could feel it. The hits just kept coming. My business line of credit suddenly got reviewed by the bank. My personal credit score dropped 90 points from all the inquiries and investigations. The health insurance company accidentally removed me from our family plan. My mail started disappearing from our mailbox, including court notices, which nearly caused me to miss a critical hearing. For 3 weeks straight, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken over Nicole. That ship had sailed the moment I heard her plotting with Marcus. I was awake because everything I had worked for was under direct threat. My company, my reputation, my financial security. All of it was on the line because I had married someone who decided that my decade of support entitled her to everything I owned. My lawyer kept me grounded during this nightmare. This is exactly why they're going nuclear, he explained. They want you desperate, sleep-deprived, and willing to settle just to make it all stop. Don't give them what they want. I'd sit on my deck at 4 a.m. thinking about the absurdity of the situation. I was watching a woman who lived rent-free in a mansion I paid for try to paint me as the villain while cashing checks with my name on them. The whole time, Nicole was posting these vague inspirational quotes on Instagram. Stuff like, sometimes walking away is the strongest move, and know your worth, then add tax. Her followers were eating it up, commenting about how brave she was. If they only knew this wasn't about love or personal growth anymore, this was straight up financial warfare. Despite all the initial hits and the chaos they were creating, I still had two aces up my sleeve that they didn't know about. The weeks after Nicole filed were absolutely brutal. The legal system isn't built for innocent people. It's built for process, and that process is slow, expensive, and tends to favor whoever strikes first with the most dramatic claims. Every morning started with some new emergency. A motion filed, an account frozen, or a demand for documents that would take days to compile. I was spending hours on the phone with my lawyer instead of running my business. We had a preliminary hearing where the judge decided on temporary arrangements while the divorce proceeded. Despite our prenup specifically stating that no temporary support was required, the judge ordered me to pay Nicole $9,000 a month for ongoing living expenses. This was on top of the fact that I was still paying the mortgage on our main house where she was living, plus all the utilities and insurance. The judge's reasoning? Nicole had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle and needed continuity during this difficult transition. Never mind that she was the one who chose to blow up our marriage, or that she had her own income from her business. My lawyer tried to argue that the prenup covered this exact scenario, but the judge basically said that was for the final hearing to decide. For now, we had to maintain the status quo, which meant Nicole got to live expense-free while I bled cash. The court also appointed a forensic accountant to determine the true value of my business, at my expense, of course. This guy charged $450 an hour to tell me things I already knew about my own company. The audit was destroying us from the inside out. The court-appointed accountant demanded access to everything: client contracts, profit margins, salary structures, operational details. My office manager was working overtime just to comply with document requests. 4 of my project managers were getting deposed about company operations. Clients were getting nervous about confidentiality breaches. One client actually pulled a $225,000 renovation project, citing uncertainty about your company's situation. That meant I had to lay off 3 guys I had just hired specifically for that job. Having to tell them, sorry, no work after all, was absolutely gut-wrenching. Nicole's lawyer was also demanding copies of every text, email, and social media message I'd sent or received in the past 4 years. The justification? Looking for evidence of hidden assets or abusive patterns. It was nothing but a fishing expedition designed to find anything they could twist into their narrative. One Thursday morning, I walked into the office to find my executive assistant in tears. "I'm so sorry," she said, handing me a letter. "I got subpoenaed for your divorce case. They want all my texts and emails with you for the past year." It turned out Nicole's team was fishing for anything they could use against me. Inappropriate messages, financial discussions, scheduled details that might indicate secret meetings. There was nothing to find, but the invasion felt deeply personal. They were dragging innocent people into our mess. My assistant wasn't the only one they subpoenaed. My business partner, my brother, even my elderly mother, anyone who might have information they could potentially use against me. My mom called me crying, afraid she'd say the wrong thing and hurt my case. She's 78 with a heart condition, and the stress wasn't good for her health. The temporary financial order meant I was living on a court-approved allowance from my own money while the case proceeded. I had to submit receipts for anything over $600 to the court to prove I wasn't dissipating assets. Meanwhile, Nicole had somehow gotten approved for a higher monthly stipend than mine, despite having virtually no living expenses. The system was working exactly as designed, in her favor. I had to move out of our house, the one I paid for, and into a 2-bedroom apartment. Not because the court ordered it, but because staying under the same roof as Nicole was becoming genuinely dangerous. She was baiting me into arguments and then secretly recording them. Once, I caught her editing a recording of us discussing bills, cutting out her provocations, and leaving only my frustrated responses. My attorney costs were approaching $120,000. The business disruption was costing even more. I had to take out a personal loan just to keep up with all the expenses: legal fees, temporary support, maintaining 2 households, plus the ongoing company audit. I had to lay off 3 more employees because we'd lost another major contract during all this chaos. That was the lowest point for me, watching good people lose their jobs because of my personal mess. People with families and mortgages, all becoming collateral damage in Nicole's war against me. On top of everything else, my doctor diagnosed me with stress-induced hypertension and started me on blood pressure medication at 42 years old. He said if I didn't get my stress under control, I was headed for a heart attack. I'd lost 18 pounds without even trying. I just couldn't eat with all the stress consuming me. I almost gave up at that point. My friends tried to be supportive, but most were couples who knew us both, so they felt caught in the middle. A few guy friends stuck by me, but others went silent, afraid of getting dragged into the mess themselves. The isolation was almost as bad as the financial bleeding. That night, I sat in my sad little apartment looking at settlement scenarios. Maybe I should just give her the house and 50% of everything to make this nightmare go away. It would hurt, but at least there would be certainty. I could rebuild, maybe sell the business and start over somewhere else. As I stared at those numbers, something clicked. This situation felt familiar, like I'd been here before, ready to cave in just to end the pain. Then I remembered, this was exactly what Nicole had done to me for years. Create enough discomfort that I'd pay any price for peace. Not this time. I called my lawyer at midnight. We're not settling, not 1 cent more than the prenup specifies. In fact, I want to countersue for legal fees based on bad faith negotiations. He sounded more awake than anyone should at that hour. That's what I wanted to hear. And actually, I've been doing some digging that might interest you. Try me, I told him. 3 days later, my lawyer and I met with Nicole and her lawyer for a settlement conference. I hadn't seen Nicole in person since she moved out, and she looked good. New haircut, expensive outfit, clearly trying to project success and confidence. Her lawyer started with the usual pleasantries about amicable resolution and fair division, then laid out their final offer. It was still absolutely ridiculous, but slightly less delusional than before. They had generously come down to 50% of all assets and reduced their alimony demands to just 8 years instead of permanent support. My lawyer let them finish their presentation, then calmly slid 2 folders across the table. Before we respond to your offer, we have some information to discuss, he said, in that measured tone that lawyers perfect. He opened the first folder. This is the prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed when you married. A standard document, fairly generous given the circumstances. Nicole's lawyer nodded impatiently, clearly wanting to get past the preliminaries. My lawyer then opened the second folder. This is the updated prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed 6 years ago during your mortgage refinancing on the lake house property. Nicole's head snapped up. What updated agreement? My lawyer continued as if she hadn't spoken. This document includes additional clauses that significantly alter the terms under certain circumstances. He highlighted the key section and read it aloud. In the event that either party makes claims of emotional abuse, financial control, or similar allegations that are not substantiated by clear and convincing evidence, the asset division shall be modified to 90% in favor of the accused party and 10% to the accusing party. The color completely drained from Nicole's face. I never signed that. My lawyer slid a document toward her. Your initials are on every page, your signature is on the last page, properly notarized. You even added a smiley face next to your name, something you always do. I looked directly at Nicole. You did read the document, right? You initialed every page, or were you just rushing to get to your luxury retreat in Aspen that weekend? She had no answer because she hadn't read it carefully. She'd been so excited about the 6-day spa retreat, I'd surprised her with that she'd signed whatever I put in front of her with minimal scrutiny. It was a classic gold digger move. Just sign the papers and get to the good stuff. Just refinance paperwork, I had said, which it was, partly. Her lawyer tried to recover, but mine wasn't finished. We also hired a forensic accountant, my lawyer said, opening another folder. Mrs. Reed forgot to disclose $340,000 in jewelry purchases, wired $185,000 to undisclosed accounts right before filing, and falsified her business income reports. He showed transfers Nicole had made to an LLC in Wyoming that we'd traced back to Marcus. Then came the emails we'd recovered. Nicole had used the same password for her business email as we used for our Netflix account. Not exactly criminal mastermind behavior. The messages between her and Marcus laid out their entire plan in black and white, including him coaching her on how to seem afraid of me in public, and his 18% cut of whatever she managed to get above the prenup amount. Nicole gripped the edge of the table and her lawyer looked physically sick. She thought she could outmaneuver a man who built a company from scratch, I said calmly. The moment she started doctoring those financial transfers, she played herself. Her lawyer asked for a recess. When they returned an hour later, his entire tone had completely changed. Perhaps the original prenup terms would be acceptable after all, he said quietly. My lawyer pushed harder, demanding the updated agreement terms plus full legal fees. 3 days later, they caved completely. Long story short, 5 weeks later, the divorce was final. Nicole got her 25% as specified in the original prenup. Nothing more, nothing less. I kept the house, my company, and my dignity. Of course, Marcus ghosted Nicole the moment it became clear the money wasn't going to be what they'd planned. Her supplement brand now offers financial empowerment for women seminars, which I find ironically fitting. As for me, I'm dating again. A real estate agent who makes her own money and absolutely hates drama. We're taking things slow. No moving in together, no joint accounts, and definitely a prenup if things ever get serious. The lesson my dad taught me about protecting what you build turned out to be the best inheritance he ever gave me. Nicole didn't want a husband. She wanted a mark. She just picked the wrong one. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.